So today we have a great subject on which for me to speak. They told me on the way that the subject of peace and our human life situation. How to achieve that peace. Now today, in many places during this tour, I found this subject was chosen because this is the International Year of Peace. And India has something authentic to say on the subject of peace. Because of two reasons. One, throughout the 5,000 years history of India, when often she had had great states, great military power, she never went out of India to conquer any other nation. That is an authentic voice of peace. Secondly, India has a profound philosophy of man which expounds the location of peace, the locus of peace. Where does peace reside? Which we can go and take. Just like where does gold reside? Where you go and dig and get the gold. So this is a great subject in which India has spent a few thousand years and has produced outstanding personalities who breathe the spirit of universality, peace, and humanism. In this 20th century, towards the end of the century, when we are facing great problems, both socially as well as politically, it is good to listen to the great sages who have left us as a legacy for all humanity, a science which is science of man in depth. And in that science, they have expounded that in the deepest level of the human personality, there is that spark of divinity, one single divine in all of us, and that is the focus of all peace, of all love. Peace and love and other values do not come from outside. They come from man himself. I can be angry. I can be violent. I can exploit others. But I can also love. I can also send out waves of peace to everyone. All these possibilities are hidden in every human being. There is the science, there is a technique to realize this truth and transform oneself into the instrument of peace, love, and fulfillment. That subject became the subject of investigation by a team of great sages more than 4,000 years ago in India. The literature that conveys the story of that great investigation and discovery is known as the Upanishads, which also mean Vedanta, the end of the Vedas. Anta means end. Veda means science or knowledge. The end of knowledge is wisdom. So we call it the Upanishads as Vedanta. It's a wonderful literature, 4,000 years old, so relevant even today. Generally, books do not have such a long life. When we were students, we used to read some books of English literature. I ask students now, they have not heard of those books at all. Now other books are there. So books are not eternal. A few years or a few decades, that's all. Literature belongs to a long spectrum of relevance and importance. The daily newspaper, you read and throw it away. You don't touch it again. But on the other end of the spectrum are books like the Upanishads. 5,000 years we are still reading, and we are living in a highly scientific age, highly intellectual, and the only literature which is really respected by the scientific intellectual today is the literature of the Upanishads. They quote from it, they want to learn more of it. There was one great astronomer of the Harvard University, Harlow Shapley, who is the creator of modern astronomy. He came to Delhi one day. We were good friends, and he was telling me, Swamiji, we scientists do not respect any religion or any sacred book, but we go down to this Vedanta. The philosophy contains the Upanishads, because it is so rational, so scientific, you can question. The other books you cannot question. So this is the consensus among several scientists today. The Vedanta is having a great impact upon modern scientific mind, even in the 19th century. But the revolutionary advances in physical science in this century bring modern science closer to Vedanta. It's a wonderful idea. Heisenberg, one of the great creators of modern nuclear science, he was developing his principle of indeterminacy. That means absence of causality at the deeper levels of matter, nature. That's called principle of indeterminacy. There is no causality. Newton's physics had fully believed in causality and determinism, mechanism, etc. And this great scientist found at the deepest level causality cannot function. You cannot understand the behavior of an electron definitely, because two factors are needed to understand this. You must know the position of the electron. You must know the momentum of the electron. If you know both, you can predict and determine its behavior. That was the position in that nuclear science at that time. Then came Heisenberg. He said, you can never know this truth about the behavior of the electron only because if you know one factor precisely, you will never know the other factor precisely. If you know position, you will not know momentum. If you know momentum, you won't know the position. Without both, you cannot predict. Therefore, causality, which is available in our molecular level of nature, breaks down at the deeper level. Now, these are crazy ideas, so far as science is concerned. I am telling this story only for one purpose. In Kapra's book, The Holographic Paradigm by Ken Wilber, in which there is an interview of scientist Kapra with Heisenberg. There, Heisenberg tells our Kapra. Kapra is the author of that famous book, Tao of Physics, Physics, which has revolutionized in modern science. He said, I was holding on to these crazy ideas. I was not bold enough to publish these ideas because they were so crazy. They turned physical science upside down. So I was worried. At that time, I went to India. All these are words of Heisenberg. I went to India and I met India's great poet, Rabindranath Tagore. We discussed philosophy. Then I found that these Indian philosophers have more crazier ideas than my own. These are the words he has used. They have more crazy ideas than my own. That gave me the boldness that I can publish. Then he published it as the principle of indeterminacy, which completely revolutionized the whole of modern science. So I'm telling the intellectual depth of the Upanishads, is something remarkable. The man like Schrödinger, another great nuclear scientist, quotes from the Upanishads passages and with such joy and approval. Similarly, molecular scientists also, and most of all, modern psychology, psychotherapy and other departments of psychology. So the Upanishads are a wonderful literature. That's why it is immortal. And because it discovered the immortal in man, that behind this body-mind complex, which is part of the changeable universe outside, there is a focus in man, which is immortal, which is divine and infinite. That is a discovery. They announced it. And that was the greatest contribution of India. Though India has done good work in physical sciences, but the greatest contribution is this great subject of science of man in depth. Julian Huxley has coined the phrase, the British biologist, science of human possibilities. And this Vedanta is exactly a science of human possibilities. In physics you have the science of physical possibilities. What are the possibilities hidden in a piece of matter? But modern science has not studied the subject of man in depth. It has studied only from the surface, so far as man is concerned. There it is, they find the contributions of the Upanishads just complementing the great work of modern science with respect to physical nature. Unless we study both nature outside, nature as expressed in the human being, how can we understand reality in fullness? Vedanta doesn't see any distinction between one knowledge or the other. Science is one. It may have several departments, but science is one. Science studies the truth of things. Physical truth at the sensory level. Spiritual truth above the sensory level. These two levels constitute the totality of reality. Here is the world revealed by the five senses. What lies behind the sensory system? What is the energy there? So I put a searchlight onto the world. Then I get physical science. I turn that searchlight onto myself. Then some other science comes up. That's what Vedanta described as Adhyatma Vidya or Brahma Vidya. She referred to the Theosophical Society and its objectives. The word theosophy is just a translation by Blavatsky and others of the Sanskrit word Brahma Vidya, the science of Brahman. Brahman stands for the ultimate infinite reality. This Brahma Vidya is called theosophy. I am glad to tell you, I am speaking here, I am very glad. 3 days ago, I was addressing the Theosophical Society at Adelaide. The hall was full, we had a wonderful time. So many times I have spoken there. Also in Melbourne Society, so many times I have spoken. So also in Sydney. So I am speaking here. I am very glad. And in Adyar headquarters, I have spoken several times, conducted retreats. We had that Australian doctor lady who died of dog bite in Adyar some 4 years ago. She was arranging my meeting in Sydney and she arranged my retreat in Adyar to study Shankaracharya's Viveka Chudamani. Wonderful time. I stayed with the President, Radha, at that time, the present President. So I'm telling this background, and one great theosophist has passed away just a few days ago, Mrs. Rukmini Arunde. Mr. Arunde himself was President before. She was a great artist, one who revived the ancient arts of India, highly respected. We know each other very intimately. So here we have this subject of the Upanishads in this scientific age, so relevant, so sought after by the greatest thinkers today. Why? Because it has to convey to humanity a perennial message which never becomes old. That is because it deals with man himself. How to make this human being a center of peace, a center of love. How to make this human being realize its own real possibilities hidden within itself. That science can never become old. Every generation will like to know that science. Whenever you see a newborn baby, look at the eyes of that baby. Some depth dimension is revealed by those eyes. Keep a doll baby and a real baby side by side. Look at the eyes. The doll baby's eyes are blank. Just the surface only, no depth at all. A living baby will reveal some depth. Is there any science that can penetrate into the depth of that eyes and find out the possibilities hidden behind? If you want such a science, go to the Upanishads. Go to this great philosophy of Vedanta, absolutely fearless among philosophies. It conveys to man also a message of strength, a message of fearlessness, and a message of love. In fact, one of the most beautiful things in Vedanta is fearlessness. Brahman is fearlessness. He who realizes Brahman becomes fearless, say the Upanishads. It is not fear that is all there, fearlessness. But along with fearlessness, gentleness, peacefulness. These two must go together. Rarely they go together in human life. I can be strong and become a bully and giving trouble to all people. I may be gentle like a cow, become the object of aggression from everybody else. This is what we see in the world. But Vedanta says, combine strength with gentleness, strength with peacefulness. That is ideal human condition. That is the end of human development. What a wonderful message. Fearlessness and strength. The Sanskrit word for fearlessness is abhayam. Bhaya means fear. Abhaya, I is always negative. Abhaya means fearlessness. When you realize God, you become fearless. God's name is fearlessness, and that is hidden within you, not some faraway place. That is a profound message coming from a group of investigators who scientifically, rationally, with open minds, investigated into the human personality and discovered the mortal behind the mortal, the infinite behind the finite. You remember towards the end of the last century, an American scientist wrote a famous book with a very, very significant title. That was Man the Unknown by Alexis Carrel. Very popular at that time. Man the Unknown. Man the Known is the subject of physiology, anatomy, behaviorist psychology. Behind it is Man the Unknown. Vedanta calls it Man the Infinite, Man the Immortal, man who feels his oneness with all because of that realization of the inborn divine nature. Now, this subject is expounded here in Vedanta in wonderful language, wonderful rational conviction. I give you one verse to convey the way they penetrated into the human system and discovered that point of peace, that point of infinite love and compassion in every human being. Here is the body, here are the senses, here is the mind, and behind the mind is also our reason, judgment, understanding. Behind all this, the depth of man is that infinite Atman, the spark of the divine, one infinite Atman in all of us. That is the teaching, even in the Upanishads. That verse I am going to recite to you and give you the translation. It says, Yached Vang Manasi Pratyaha Tad Yached Jnana Atmani Jnana Atmani Mahadini Yached Tad Yached Shanta Atmani. This verse is describing the method adopted by those sages in this investigation. It is like any scientific method, only difference is science deals with sensory data, where your senses study data outside and the mind studies those data. Here, you go beyond the sensory level. What lies behind the sensory system? What is there in the depth of the human consciousness? So the senses are of no use here. You go beyond the senses. When do you go beyond the senses? When you go to sleep or when you are in deep meditation. Two great experiences where you go beyond the sensory level. A wonderful idea. Sleep is an experience where this world of sensory experience is completely transcended. In dream also we transcend the sensory world. There we are creative. We create another world in dream. And everything is fine there. Now the dreamer finds the dream world absolutely real. You may not find it real when you wake up, but in dream it is perfectly real. Everything is fitting with everything else. Then when the dream stops, nothing is seen. Absolute emptiness. And yet, it cannot be emptiness. The self is there, but we do not know. Then they come to the waking state. And once again, the world starts there. This is one aspect of human life, sleep. Sushupti, they call it in Sanskrit. The other aspect is meditation, where you are not going to an unconscious state. You are alert, fully alert. You are fully awake. That state of quiescence is called meditation. You go beyond the sensory level. Eyes are closed, mind becomes tranquil, all the senses are tranquil. What a wonderful experience. In the Upanishads, this verse gave you that procedure and technique. Take the energies now manifesting as sensory energies in you, which are always scattered here and there, collect them, merge them into your psychic energy system. That is the first step in meditation. Then the entire psychic energy is again collected and merged in buddhi, the great principle of reason that is within us. Then that energy is merged in the infinite Atman, which is called the Atman of peace. All peace is there. All these are merged there. All the conflicts and tensions of our external life are resolved in that infinite center of peace, which is called the Atman. The word is called Shanta Atmani. Shanti is the word for peace in Sanskrit. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We say Upanishads are full of this word Shanti. So the Atman is called Shanta, means ever peaceful. All the conflicts and tensions of life are resolved in the state of the Atman when you become yourself truly. So that's called the depth of meditation. Then when you come out of that meditation, you will breathe only peace, only love, only concern. A tremendous transformation takes place in the human being concerned. This is a science which has been cultivated, expounded from various angles for all these thousands of years. In this Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, from which I quoted, there is the third Upanishad, Isha Kena Katha. Last year, in Dusseldorf, Mulheim, Dortmund, West Germany area, I had a retreat of a weekend. About 40, 50 Germans were there, and we studied Katha Upanishad. Most of them are hearing it for the first time. I cannot convey to you the tremendous reaction from the audience. There's something wonderful. They have never heard of these wonderful ideas. This is what they said. This year they are studying another Upanishad, Kena, the second one. That is in Germany. So this slogan was taken, verse was taken from Katha Upanishad, chapter 3. Now, in this way, Upanishad, there is also the verse which tells us to march ahead until you find your victory. Uttishtata, Jagrata, Prativaran, Nibodhata. Just like pointing out gold fields we discovered. People rushing to the gold fields to make gold because there's a great attraction. Similarly, here is something much superior to any gold or diamond, the supreme peace hidden in every human being. Therefore, Upanishad says, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. That is something to be striven for. It cannot come to you by mere believing. I believe I am the infinite Atman. It doesn't do any good to you. You must appropriate that truth to yourself. You must realize it. We believe there is oil below Australian soil. That doesn't make Australia rich. There is a technology of putting out that oil and then you become rich. Similarly, this truth has to be realized. Say the Upanishads. So, 1,000 years after the Upanishads, a great personality arose who took up this great challenge. The first historical figure, all the rest are what they call pre-chronological history. We don't have much of chronology in Indian history. We only have history of ideas, not of chronology. Chronology begins from Buddha's time because contemporary Persian Empire, Greek Empire, they had history, so we could connect with it. Before then, there was no particular history. Other nations were not much in evidence at that time. From Buddha begins the historical period. That Buddha was a prince. For 29 years, he lived a pleasant life at the sensory level. Then one day, a big quest came to him. What is the truth about this all? How to get real peace? How to make humanity realize its own real fulfillment? This wonderful question agitated his mind. One midnight, he quietly left the palace and went into the forest. And for 7 years, he struggled to achieve this great objective of peace. And one day, he had practiced various disciplines to achieve peace. Some of the people were practicing all sorts of austerities, fasting, putting the body to trouble. All these things were going on by some people. He also followed, thinking it is true. After some time, he found he had become weak. The whole body had become weak. He couldn't stand up. He fell down one day. Then the foolish idea became clear to him. This is not a way to search for truth. The body is my only instrument for it. I awaken it all the time. How can I know the truth? I shall give up this vulgarity of senseless austerity. As I gave up the vulgarity of the sensory life, I live in the palace. Both are vulgar. The will path is the correct path. Keep the body fit and fine. Keep the mind and the senses fit and fine. Then investigate this profound truth. He took this decision. So many 4 or 5 disciples were with him, finding him very austere. They said, we don't want to be with you. You are giving up austerity. You are becoming luxurious. We are going away. So they went away. Buddha was happy. Now I am alone. So that day he said, I must eat. But who is to give food in that forest? This forest is 300 miles northwest of Calcutta, Gaya. Now it's a famous Buddha Gaya International Pilgrim Center. Just then, a village girl, who is the daughter of a village chieftain, came there to offer rice pudding, milk pudding, to the deity of that tree under which Buddha was sitting. Then that girl was very happy. That deity was sitting in front. She mistook Buddha to be the deity. So she offered that big golden plate there of thing, saluted and went away. Buddha took it, blessed the girl, may your desire be fulfilled. I will also have my desire fulfilled today. So he went and bathed in the river nearby, took that pudding and became a little strong. Then sunset came. He sat under that tree. That tree under which he sat has become so famous thereafter, the Bodhi tree, tree of enlightenment. There he sat in meditation like this, with crossed leg, with one determination. Let this body wither away, and all this skin and bones become shriveled. Yet I will not get up from this seat till I realize the truth. The truth which is difficult to obtain in spite of years and years of struggle. This night I must get it. This is the famous verse occurring in books of 2nd century AD, written in Sanskrit about Buddha's life. Lalita Vistara is a famous book with English translation, you get it. Ihasane shishyutume shariram tvagasti mamsam vilayam chayatuhu aprapya bodhim bahukalpadurlapam naivasanat rayamata charishyate. Says, let this body be shriveled on the seat. I shall not move an inch from this seat till I realize that truth which takes ages to realize. With that firm determination, he sat that day and did exactly what the Upanishad said. Take the energy of the senses, merge that energy into the mind, merge that into the buddhi, finally merge everything in the infinite self, the one self in all that is hidden within you. So by 4 o'clock at night, he had realized the supreme truth. He had become illumined. Buddhi, bodhi means illumination. The one who has bodhi is called Buddha. Buddha means awakened. He had awakened to the truth. We are asleep at the plane of truth. He had become awakened. What infinite joy came to him. This wonderful truth. A prince living happily in the palace, investigating this profound truth with courage and determination. Then what happened? He said, I must communicate this message. Some will be there who will be able to understand it. He remembered those 5 disciples. Let me search for them. By divine knowledge he came to know they are in Benares, Varanasi. He walked towards Varanasi, 144 miles. There in a deer park, which is even today there, after 2,600 years, you will still see the deer park. He saw the 5 young people. He greeted them. He taught them a profound message in 2 discourses, setting in motion the wheel of Dharma, Dharma Chakra Pravartana. The first sutra is called discourse. Setting in motion the wheel of Dharma means spirituality. It becomes stagnant. It becomes diluted. And a great teacher comes and sets it in motion. In India, we never expect a priest or a scholar to initiate a spiritual movement. Only a man of spiritual realization. Scholars and others are respected, but not to that extent. Unless a man is truly spiritual, who realizes the truth, you cannot expect a spiritual revolution. So Buddha started the spiritual revolution, setting in motion the wheel of Dharma. Now imagine that concept of the wheel in this discourse. Later on, 300 years later, it entered into Indian art in Ashoka, the great Mauryan emperor, 3rd century BC. The great wheel you can see in many of Indian art. And today it has entered into India's flag as well. That same flag, that same wheel is now the center of India's flag. Wheel represents motion, progress, development. And so, first discourse was on this subject, Dharma Chakra Pravartana. Second was this subject, how to penetrate these externals of our individuality and go to the very core and discover the mortal behind the mortal. These 2 discourses are the most essential discourses of Bhagavan Buddha. Having got the 5 people, disciples, after a few weeks, the number rose to 60 in Benares. Then Buddha said, calling all the 60, preach this message of peace, of non-violence, of compassion and love to the whole world. Go around the world, he said. They all dispersed. Buddha went to Rajgriha. After 500 years, what happened? It spread throughout Asia, up to Mongolia, Japan, China, Tibet, Southeast Asia, everywhere. And how? Not a single instance of persecution, violence, war accompanied the spread of this great Dharma of Buddha because of that Indian cultural background, the Vedantic, Upanishadic background of universality. No violence, absolute non-violence and compassion. And hospitals for men and animals all over India at that time. Then that emperor comes, 3rd century BC, 200 years after Buddha's death. He attacked a neighboring kingdom, completely defeated that kingdom, and about 100,000 people were killed. He sat on a hill, on a rock, overlooking the battlefield. Even today you can go there 5 miles from Bhubaneswar in Orissa, about 300 miles from Calcutta south. Even now that place is there. There he decided, I renounce war as the instrument of my political policy. I shall silence war drums. I shall sound the kettle drums of peace. He proclaimed this message all over his vast empire in inscriptions of rock and pillars. And the empire was very vast, from southern Russia, Tashkent area, through Afghanistan, Pakistan, the whole of India, up the far south of India, as a mighty empire. He spread this message of peace and harmony in the world of religion. No intolerance, only harmony in the world of religion. This was a tremendous education to the people of India. And for the first time in history, you find a political state renouncing war as instrument of state policy. H.G. Wells, famous British author of world history, more than 80 years ago, in his book said, among all the great majesties and highnesses and her majesties, etc., there is only one crowned head that shines supreme from east to west everywhere. That is this Ashoka. There is no second person of that nature. So you can see, therefore, that meditation of Buddha, what was the fruit of it? And it is good for us to know what Jesus said. By their fruits ye shall know them. If meditation can give you this tremendous peace and make that peace the instrument of a whole cultural invasion of the rest of the world in peace and harmony, then there is something wonderful in it. It's not a mere joke. You can see the cultural milieu makes all the difference. Teaching may be there. There must be a cultural milieu. Buddha taught. Behind Buddha there was a cultural milieu of peace based on the Upanishads. You didn't have it in the Middle East where Jesus Christ appeared. He also said the same thing. He told all the disciples, go and preach this great message. And he said, I send you as lambs among wolves. Be gentle, carry peace. But history shows quite differently. For want of that cultural background, Christianity spread throughout the world, through violence, through war, various things happen. Instead of becoming what you call lambs among wolves, often it becomes wolves among lambs. That is history. We are correcting it today because of the cultural background which Indian culture provided through the message of the Upanishads, that universal dimension, same Atman in every being. You can't hate anyone if you know that we are all one. That is the sentence in the first Upanishad. So here is peace hidden in the heart of all. And that peace has to be discovered by every person, by a little inward penetration. When your mind is at the sensory level, you are very unpredictable individual, because the senses are unpredictable. When you are at the psychic level, you are still unpredictable. You can be very kind, you can also be very wicked and exploitative at the mere intellectual level. But once you rise to the level of the Atman, the infinite behind, then only words of love, words of blessing can come from that mouth. This is what you find in the world of religion at that scientific level. And religion has two levels, the ethnical and the scientific. Ethnical is what we call do's and don'ts, creeds, dogmas and do's and don'ts. We are born in a religion, we never chose it. We are Hindu by chance, Muslim by chance, Christian by chance. That's called ethnical dimension of religion. Scientific dimension is when you begin to seek religion, seek truth. That seeking is what you heard from that verse, the Upanishads, what you saw in Buddha. They sought and found infinite peace. Whenever Jesus advised his followers to go and preach, one beautiful advice he gave. If only Christianity had followed that advice, It would have been a religion full of peace, but it was not so. Half peace, half peacelessness, that has been history. What did Jesus tell? He says, whenever you go to preach my message, go to a town or a village, find out who is a good man in that town and village, then knock at his door. He opens the door. And can you give me some place to live during this preaching time? Will you be kind enough to be my host here? If that host welcomes you, beautiful. May your peace come upon that house. Then the next sentence is wonderful. If the host says no to you and you have to go away, may that peace return back to you, he says. Don't be angry, don't be violent, I'll teach you a lesson. Don't say all these things. May that peace return back to you. If this had been followed, as it was followed in the case of whatever religions went out from India, without any kind of intolerance and violence and war, there would have been a different world today. So today we are reconsidering all these aspects. Every religion is today reconsidering. We are reassessing and coming closer together by discussion, by what we call dialogue. In fact, on Saturday evening, we have got a symposium of religions in Sydney. This is going on all over the world today. Beautiful. From religion we can get the supreme principle of peace. Not when it is subordinate to political forces, then only violence will come. When it is itself purely spiritual, when we have touched something deep within, then words of love and peace alone can come. This is what you find in the mystics of the world's religions, Christian mystics. Generally, they are very, very universal in their love and concern. If at all you find any Catholic mystic with a violent attitude, it is because a politician has been canonized by the church. The church is now decanonizing many of such people. Many of them do not deserve this canonization. For political purposes, we canonize them. But truly, Christian mystics are all universal in their sympathy and understanding. So also the Sufi mystics, Buddhist, Hindu, all. Because that is the science of religion, where the key word is spiritual growth, development, and fulfillment. Key word is realization. As the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, husband telling his wife, both are sages, Yajnavalkya telling his wife, Maitri, Atmava Are Drashtabhya. My dear, this Atman must be realized. It's not a matter for belief. Realize that spiritual dimension within you. But how? Shrotavyo, Mantavyo, Vididhyasravya. First you hear about it, that behind this body-mind complex, which is so trivial from the sensory point of view, little extra heat and cold can destroy it. Behind all this, there is a center of infinite purity, perfection, and love and peace. That must be heard first. After hearing, try to understand it, think about it, and finally deeply meditate and realize the truth for yourself, says Yajnavalkya to his wife Maitreyi. Every spiritual teacher has repeated the same advice throughout the ages. It's not belief, but spiritual experience. That is what is needed, so that we lift our mind from the low level to a high level. At present, it is an unpredictable level, just like any animal. You pat a dog. I remember once a man patted a dog, immediately gave a biting. It was a good dog, but at that moment his mood was different. He gave a nice biting, that particular dog. Even our the Theosophical Society secretary here in Adyar, she had a very faithful dog. One day she patted the dog bit her, and she died of dog bite within about 10 days. She suffered terribly due to that. Throat became congested, etc. So I'm telling you, do not know how the dog will behave. Similarly, this man at the sensate level, we don't know how he will behave. Today he is very kind, tomorrow he may be very wicked fellow. So in this way, there is a science of raising consciousness to higher and higher levels. So in work, in human relations, in inward meditation, everywhere there is one objective: how to become a center of peace, how to become a center of love and concern. Everywhere there is one objective: how to become a center of peace, how to become a center of love and concern. This is a possibility hidden in every human being. There is the science of this possibility. We have to achieve it, and that is what the world needs today. Just before the Second World War, in England, that is London, a British intellectual by name Dr. Josiah Oldfield gave a lecture on war and internationalism. In the course of his lecture, he remarked a beautiful sentence he gave. He said, "More wars are caused by bad-tempered people seeking to discuss peace measures than by good-tempered people seeking to discuss war measures." He was particularly referring to the Treaty of Versailles, where wolves had gathered together to declare peace, the Treaty of Versailles, the Peace of Versailles. And that became the seed for a bigger explosion in the Second World War. How can wolves settle down to create peace? They have no peace within themselves. All colonial powers, ever jealous of each other, trying to somehow find out some adjustment. So that's what he was referring to. So what we need today is this development of peace in the individual concern. The international level we can do by treaties, but who is to guarantee the treaty? The people. If the people are warlike, no peace can come. If the people are peaceful, no serious war also can come. Ultimately, therefore, the Second World War taught us a profound lesson. That lesson is a spiritual lesson. Generally, the world religions uphold that lesson. But for the first time, a political document contained this great spiritual lesson. That is the preamble to the UNESCO. In that preamble you read, "Since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed." How to educate the child in peace? It's a wonderful subject today. Children are becoming criminal. Juvenile delinquency is increasing because they don't get the spiritual nourishment. They don't get the stimulus that within them is a profound dimension of peace. They don't get it at all. We have to give that wonderful education to children. When we read some of the papers, sometimes in England or in America, see young people full of animal energy. They use that energy to oppress weaker people, especially old people. Just of trouble in our person. This energy. So many newspapers, you are getting your pension, a boy comes, watches, you take the money, you come and steal from her and go away. So many cases in England reported in the papers. Now all over the world this is happening. Why? This wonderful science is unknown. We only know physical sciences. That gives you plenty of eating, drinking, pleasure, everything. What you call kick at a sensory level. And you go down and down. But if you can divert a part of that energy towards this dimension, there's a profound dimension within you. Try to manifest it. Try to unfold it. Even a little, then love alone will come from you. I'm a young man, 14, 18 years old, plenty of energy. Let me help that old person. Let me go and serve that other person. Why that tendency doesn't come? That comes from a deeper source. We don't know anything about a deeper source. So this is the science of man in depth, Adhyatma Vidya. And in the Indian tradition, among all the sciences, we give the highest place of honor to the science of man in depth, to this Adhyatma Vidya. In the Gita, you will find Krishna telling, among all the sciences, I am Adhyatma Vidya, the science of man as the Atman, because that is the science that can give you peace, that can make you radiate peace. What a beautiful idea. Here is a subject of meditation given by Buddha and by the great teachers of yoga in India. It's called Maitri Bhavana, meditation on friendliness, on compassion. That's called Maitri Bhavana. Every morning, sit down, close your eyes, calm your mind, and then send out a wave of love and friendship to the whole world. That's called Maitri Bhavana, advocated in Buddhism as well as in yoga philosophy. Swami Vivekananda referred to this, and he said, instead of that, what do we do every day? Send out waves, bombshells of hatred towards the world. of separateness between man and man to the world. Racial ideas we sent out. Everything that makes for conflict and violence and war, we sent out from millions of human minds. No wonder there is no peace. We can change the whole ratio. It is just like you have industrial revolution and so much of atmospheric pollution going on in the world today. But the bigger pollution is mental pollution. Violence and thinking, intolerance, all these things are there. These are worse bombs than the hydrogen bombs that are there. So this subject is so important today. The whole of Australia, the whole of India, all these countries must think in these lines how to make the human child a center of peace, human concern, and the whole world is seeking it today. Humanism is a great word. It is a universal religion. Our teachers said in Vedanta, see God in man. He is a spark of the divine. So love him and serve him. That can become a great philosophy for practical application today. Ramakrishna taught it, Vivekananda taught it. Every jiva is Shiva. Service of the jiva is the worship of Shiva. Jiva means the soul. Shiva means the divine. Every jiva is Shiva. Service of the jiva is the worship of Shiva. What a beautiful teaching. And not only beautiful, and how true. When you check up, you find it is true. Buddha realized that Shiva nature, that infinite nature. Similarly, every child is put on the road of its own spiritual development, along with bodily development and mental development. We don't do that first one, spiritual development. Only we strengthen his body, strengthen his mind, fatten his ego. He or she becomes the center of tension and projects that tension to the world outside. So this subject becomes of supreme significance today. The word Shanti occurs millions of times in Indian literature. How to become peaceful, a center of peace, how to radiate peace to people around you. That great Emperor Ashoka sent out this great call to silence war drum. We need that teaching today. In Mahatma Gandhi you saw a quality of this kind of peace. A man who could not hate anyone. Even though the police let him down in South Africa, he couldn't hate anyone. Whereupon Gandhi brought that particular idea or emotion from a deep level. It doesn't come from the sensory level. And if one man can do it, all can do it. There is nothing impossible. Impossible is a bad word in science today, because we were thinking that nobody has seen the other side of the moon. It is impossible, we used to say. But after the World War is over, we have seen the other side of the moon, and our Voyager is going beyond the solar system. So what is impossible? Everything is possible. We can completely change our personality system. It happens. How does a sinner become a saint? How does a criminal become transformed, become a saintly person? It has happened again and again. So today we need a science and technique of the spiritual growth of the human child. That is what is called Vedanta, what is called Yoga. That's why it is really invading psychology and modern thought in various directions. By that, we can create a really happy human situation all over the world. Today, you can't do anything in piecemeal in one country. Everything must be done either worldwide or not at all. Good also spreads all over the world, bad also spreads all over the world without any restriction. This peace must spread throughout the world. Peaceful men and women, at peace with themselves, at peace with the world. That's a spiritual achievement. By increasing brain power, you don't get it at all. I have given the science of spirituality in this great subject of peace. There is another way, which is purely following physical science without any reference to higher spirituality. That is also happening. Today's molecular biology promises to make you peaceful, can give you peace by all sorts of what you call drugs, all sorts of external applications on you. In fact, there is a book called The Biological Time Bomb by Rattray Taylor, written about 8 or 9 years ago, that if man is treated by modern technology in all aspects of his life, the whole society will be reduced to an animal farm. Any trouble, you go to the laboratory, you will set right your difficulties. Whatever may be relevance to abnormal human minds, millions of people are normal people. They should not become engineered by a technology to bring peace and happiness to you. So, Professor Delgado is a great scientist in Massachusetts. He one day experimented on this subject. A charging bull, he planted electrodes in the brain controlling its various emotions. We know where from these emotions come. Love, hatred, anger, we know. Planted electrodes. And he had a switch in his hand. And that bull came charging towards him. And he touched that button. The bull became very quiet, full of peace. Now you can create peace like this by technical methods. Husband and wife, each one has electrode in the head. And each one has the what you call switch. The wife is angry, he will touch. Husband will touch the switch, wife is very quiet. Then husband is angry, wife does it. This way, technologically, you can have peace like this. But what a shame for a human being to be subjected to this kind of technical treatment from outside. Other than that is the subject of religion as a scientific pursuit of peace in a human being. This is the choice before humanity today. And I'm glad to say more scientists or more technologists are saying we are not able to deal with this subject. Only religion can do, only spirituality can do. We need science and spirituality together. Einstein himself said, science can denature plutonium, but it cannot denature evil in the heart of man. That's not the purpose of physical science. So today, this great physical science can create a very prosperous welfare state. And the science of spirituality can evolve peaceful men and women in that state, so that we shall have no war, violence or crime in society. That possibility is there before us. Today, the confluence, as Vivekananda said, of science and Vedanta, spirituality and physical science must go together. So this is the subject that should occupy our attention. Up to the age of 12, all children are beautiful, very sweet and very smiling all over the world. When I travel all over the world, I see fine children, all are angels. After 12, something happens to some of them. They become juvenile criminals, all sorts of distorted personalities, because that nourishment has not gone for the spiritual development of the child. Therefore, all these difficulties come. So it is a parent's responsibility. It is a human responsibility today. This subject, therefore, must be understood and applied by every citizen in every part of the world. Thank you all. Namaskar. Yes, very good, very good. There will be something to clarify. I will be very glad to do so.
We're all very knowledgeable in this. Mr. Vedanta written for the young children to understand.
Oh yes. There are what you call Vedantic stories from the Upanishads. Such books are there for children to understand. And like Ramakrishna for children, Vivekananda for children, such books are there. So more and more such books are coming. They were not there much before, because the children's program is only a modern problem. Otherwise, the parents used to look after this before. Now the parents cannot do, schools do not do, so we need good, healthy children's literature. One set of books coming from India, last 10 years, it has spread throughout the world. It is called the Amar Chitrakatha series, what is called Indian comics series. You know, American comics is full of violence. Indian comics just the opposite. Life of Buddha, life of Jesus, all these come in comic form. And children love them immensely. I saw them in America, Holland, Germany, everywhere. Even in Sydney it is plenty. I don't think it has reached Gold Coast. I think you can write to Mataji a few of these, what you call Amar Chitrakatha series, children's what you call books, those books. Only 2-3 rupees, that means quarter of a dollar or $1 or so. There's a book, 40-page matter. I myself enjoy reading those books. Say, the life of Buddha, let children read. You will find quite a different impression coming to the mind. So there are about 200 such little books of this series, Indian comic book series, called Amar Chitrakatha, Immortal Picture Books. Amar means immortal. Immortal picture books. That was wonderful to give to children. Let them read other kind of comics also, but this will counteract that. If that alone is there, it is dangerous. Only violence and crime, nothing else in these comics. And television also the same. So it is good to have defenses created within the child by giving these books.
There are some books here.
Those little books are there. Give one on a sample. Can you bring one? Yogi, you bring one. You sample just to see. Nice color, attractive. When I get a book, I sit and read the whole thing straight away. Though we know the story well, I'll show. Now, here is the story of an emperor of India, say 4,000 years old, Yayati. It has wonderful reference to modern human life. He was a great emperor, ruling over the whole of India and enjoying the pleasures of life. Then, one day he found he has become old. Body has become old, but the mind is still young, full of desire for worldly pleasure. He told his 4 sons, "Will you please give me your youth? I want to enjoy this world once more." The first 3 children refused. The last son was very, very loyal. "Father, give me your old age, take my youth and enjoy yourself." So the king once again became young. Again he round the pleasures went on. Again after a few years the hair became grey, old age has come. What? Then he sat down. A deep thought came to him. Double enjoyment I have done already. Even now the desire for enjoyment never ends. It goes on multiplying. What is this? Then he utters these famous words of wisdom. He says, "Sensory desires do not cease by enjoying them and getting satiety from them. They only increase more and more as you enjoy them. It is like putting fire out through butter. You can never put out fire through butter. That's what we do all the time. No, that is enough. There are higher things to be seek after." He said like this. That is the story of Yayati, and I am giving you a quotation from an American Federal Committee's report on recent economic trends in the United States, written just after the Second World War. That is quoted by various writers. Says, "This investigation has revealed that human desires are endless." That's the first sentence. Human desires are endless. Then second sentence, that there are no new desires which will not make way for newer desires as soon as they are satisfied. And the result is man remains always a fraction, never an integer. This was studied by Schopenhauer, the German philosopher. He gave a mathematical fraction. He said, here is desire for sensory enjoyment. Here is satisfaction of sensory enjoyment. Desire being satisfied by actual enjoyment. Now this you can write as a fraction. Numerator, denominator. And the strange thing about this fraction is, as soon as you increase the numerator, the denominator increases fourfold. The mathematical. It goes on. And you will never get into an integral unity. You will become fraction, still more fraction. You begin with 1 by 2. Then you become 1 by 4, 1 by 8, 1 by 16. Always. You will always have more desires than what you can satisfy. That is a wonderful analysis by Schopenhauer. And there is reference to it in Goethe's Faust, the German great poet and dramatist. In his Faust's soliloquy in the woods, that passage. He is sitting like this in the forest. And then he says, I am seeing the broken state of man. You have lit the fire in my heart. which forces me to run into possessions. He says, from desire I stumble to possession, and in possession languish from desire. This is Veithi's beautiful expression. This is the human tragedy. Mentioned there. At some time you must be able to say, enough, let me go to higher values. That higher value doesn't inspire man today. So there is tragedy all the time going on in human life. It is amazing that this great civilization, we can really make everybody happy, but yet nobody is happy, full of tension, full of sorrow. Something is missing. That missing element is this man realizing his own true nature. That knowledge must come, then things will be perfectly fine. That's the Vedantic analysis of modern conditions. This story gives you a line of thinking in that direction. One such, Yayati, emperor. Similarly, Buddha, Jesus, all these come in these books, you see. Yes.